day, right? So I'm just make a few quick announcements here before we get started. First, just to point out, we do have a microphone in the middle there. So if you guys want to ask questions, if they give you a chance to, we do have it there, and we'd like to hear those. Next, if you could turn the flashes off on your cell phones and cameras and such. We just ask for no flash photography, but please do take as many pictures as you like. We'd like to see those everywhere, Facebook, Twitter, etc. Next, if you get phone calls, if you wouldn't mind taking those outdoors, just in the hallway there if you can, and if you could put those on mute and vibrate and such, that'd be great. Lastly, we also have FlipON.TV. They're live streaming. We actually have all the panel rooms right now. If you look towards the back, we have a camera going on right now too. So everything's being streamed live right now. So if you get a chance, check that out. So that's all I have to say. I'm going to get out of the way so these guys can get started. Thank you.
How's everybody doing? Come on, we got the internet watching. Let's get a little louder. That's right. Okay, so here's the thing. My name is Jeremy Atkins. I'm the Director of Public Relations for Dark Horse. How many of you guys have been to a Dark Horse panel before? Okay, well then you all are aware that I am not the most traditional moderator. So in that tradition of non-traditionalism, I'm going to ask all of you a question. So I'm trying to settle an argument between my lovely lady friend, who I'm having a baby with this year, and I. So thank you very much. So first of all, before I actually turn this camera on and gauge your response, we're going to pretend, for her sake, that this is something she's into. So you guys are all at a Game of Thrones panel. Is that cool? Okay, cool. All right, so, okay, Game of Thrones fans, tell me, the Baby Yoda costume works for a boy or a girl? Am I right? How many hands say yes? Yes. See, you didn't believe me, and I told you that it was the truth. I mean, and these guys aren't even Star Wars fans; they're Game of Thrones fans. Don't look over there. Okay. So, now that we can get back to Star Wars, I'd like to introduce some fantastic panelists that I have here today, and I assure you, you will not be disappointed. First of all, I would like to bring up Mr. Randy Stradley. This man is the reason why you have Star Wars comics. Right there. There he is. That guy. Right? Seriously. I say a little thanks to Randy every morning that I wake up, because he's proud of the reason I have a job. Okay, and coming up next, Mr. Brian Wood, the writer on our new series, Star Wars. And then, how many of you guys read the first Legacy series? See, that's what I'm saying. So I'd like to bring up the creative team of our new Legacy series, Mr. Gabriel Hardman and Karina Bechko. Wherever you are. Oh, there's more mics over there. So, we have some exciting things to talk about today. All of them Star Wars related. And I'm going to go ahead and start off right now with Star Wars. So, first of all, I want to thank you guys. How many of you guys picked up this comic? How many of you guys love it? Oh, come on. Come on. I want to see more hands up. Seriously. I'm looking at you right there, sir. I'm just kidding. So I want to say that we actually are in our third printing of this book because it has been so successful. And this has actually been one of our biggest Star Wars launches in quite some time. So we want to thank all of you guys very much and thank this man as well. Brian, maybe you can talk a little bit about what the storyline is for this new series.
Okay, so this book takes place like literally maybe like a week after the events of the original film, what I call the original film, the first film, and it's sort of about that period of time when the Rebel Alliance is sort of reeling from their losses. I mean, despite having blown up the Death Star, they did suffer quite a bit. So it's sort of they're trying to regroup Vader and the Empire are also trying to sort of like deal with their loss there as well. And it's really kind of about, I mean, that's what it's about. The rebels have what they think is a spy in their ranks that's kind of foiling their efforts to find a new planet to establish a base on. Everybody's kind of dealing with their own personal losses. Leia, obviously, Luke, even Vader is sort of having to sort of answer to the Emperor for the loss of the Death Star. So there's all that kind of personal drama happening there, then the larger drama, and that's basically what it's about. And I was excited because this is obviously the Star Wars I know best. And I'm sort of, I mean, not to make it sound like I have an ego or anything, but it's sort of nice to be able to go in after that first film and sort of write stuff that I always wish I had seen on the screen. Like, I never really felt like I saw any fallout from what happened in that film. So I'm taking care of business there.
Awesome.
Oh, I haven't seen that cover yet. It's awesome.
Nor have they.
That's Vader's fashion statement. Purple is the new black.
All right, so Star Wars Legacy. I'm going to let Corinna and Gabrielle talk a little bit about this. Guys, what can you tell us about this upcoming storyline?
This is, this obviously follows on the previous Legacy series, so we're far in the future of the Star Wars universe. And it's about Anya Solo. She's obviously a descendant of Han and Leia, but she's not some big wheel important person who she's living out on in the middle of nowhere. She's not she is she's starting from a place that from a sort of a relatable down to earth place. And I mean, like, if you're, if you were, if Abraham Lincoln was your, your great-great-great-grandfather, this isn't really going to do that much good in the world, I mean, so, like, she's just trying to get by. She's running a junkyard moon, and, but comes into the possession of a lightsaber, which is, she hopes is her ticket out of there, but it's mostly just a doorway to trouble.
Well said.
Oh, there you go.
I guess it's really just we're trying to, we're not stepping on the old legacy. These are new characters, that was such a rich, textured world built up with those characters. We're really starting from a little bit different place, even though they're in the same general time period. So.
And for us, the interesting challenge of it is to bring up these are new characters. We're seeing a lot of new worlds and new things, but the most important thing to us is to that it feel like Star Wars, and that we can have that kind of have a level of fun and charisma and adventure that kind of unquestionably feels like Star Wars, even though we're seeing a lot of new and different things.
And there are characters from the old series who do show up, even though the story is not about them, like Empress Fell and K'Kruk and General Stasi, or Admiral Stasi, which is the
Spoiler alert.
They all play a part in the story, even though Anina is the focus.
And we're definitely, this is definitely, in the same world that, John and Jan set up, and that we're, and the political reality of this world is, follows from where their book ended.
All right, so we've got some other books to talk about here. The writer of Dark Times, Mr. Randy Stradley. What can you tell us about the current series we're reading right now?
The current series picks up with K'Kruk and the band of young Padawans that he was kind of stuck with when we last saw him. And a lot of people have asked, how come Kukrak, didn't show up during the rebellion period? I mean, he was in the Clone Wars and then he disappears, shows back up during Legacy. Well, this will answer that question. Will establish what he was doing all that time. But it's really about like the fact that he's trying to come to terms with the new reality and the fact that he's got all these young charges that he has to take care of, and he's still hasn't come to terms with the worst thing that he's ever done in his life. So it's probably the darkest of the dark times that we've done. I mean, there's some really horrible stuff that happens, but it ends on a very hopeful note, I think. And after that, we go straight into a Doug Wheatley arc. So it will have, I don't know, some guy named Darth Vader in it.
So speaking of legacy, obviously, John Ostrander and Jan Duursema are now working on a new series, Dawn of the Jedi. How many of you guys have read that? Awesome. All right. Just for you internet users at home, every hand in this room just went up. It was crazy. So Randy, what can you tell us a little bit about Dawn of the Jedi? We've got some art to show off as well.
Okay, it's literally the building of the foundation of the Jedi Order, or what will become the Jedi Order. It's 25,000 years in the Star Wars past. Hyperdrive has not been discovered yet by any of the inhabitants of this one system where the Jedi are getting started. But they're going to find out about it real quick, because in ancient Star Wars history, there was an alien empire called the Infinite Empire, and it was all run by dark side powers. And, I mean, all of their technology and their hyperdrives and everything ran off of dark side power, and they've just discovered that this force-rich world with all these soon-to-be Jedi exists. So the invasion is coming. The Force Wars are going to happen, and it'll shake out so that you'll clearly be able to see like oh, this is where the Jedi came from. This is why they believe what they believe.
All right, so as is customary at a Star Wars panel, we usually try to get through all of our slides pretty quickly, because typically you guys seem to have a lot of questions. I'm going to go ahead and ask Randy one question straight away, because if I don't do it, someone else in this room is going to do it. What does Disney buying Lucasfilm mean for Star Wars at Dark Horse, Randy?
Wait a minute. Disney bought Lucasfilm?
That's actually about how we actually found out. It was just about the same way that just happened. No kidding.
Actually, the day that was announced, I was in Korea at this book seminar. I'd been asked to give a speech about turning Star Wars into comics, and so I had to hastily rewrite my speech when that came up. But yeah, so I was in Korea, and at 5:30 in the morning, all of a sudden my phone starts ringing, and I'm getting emails and texts and everyone telling me about it. But the truth of the matter is, so far, at this point, Disney buying Lucasfilm has meant business as usual. What we've been told is that thus far there's not been a single discussion between Disney and Lucasfilm as to what, if anything, might happen with Lucas licensing publishing programs. And the best they're able to tell us is that we will hear something this year. So that's how much I know. But there are a lot of reasons I think that Disney would be smart not to fix the machine that is already working. So we'll see what happens.
So as an addendum to that, for those of you, people of the internet, I'm talking to you, for those of you who will tweet at Dark Horse Comics, the first 10 people who do that and say, keep Star Wars at Dark Horse and what your favorite Star Wars series you're reading right now is, I will send you a free copy of one of those comics. First 10 people, go. Go. Okay. All right, so, yeah, exactly. I'm going to be sitting here hitting my phone for the next 5 minutes. Okay, so I'm actually going to ask a couple questions before we turn it over to you guys. I'm going to start with Brian. So obviously, you know, you are quite literally in just about everyone of our age's dream job, getting to write what happened after one of the greatest films ever made. So coming into this project, did you have any trepidation? What really? I mean, obviously, you know, those of us who have read what you've done so far have an idea of kind of where you're taking it. But did you have a pretty clear idea of what you wanted to do from the time you came on the project?
Yeah, like I said, I mean, this is pretty much the Star Wars that I know, and I felt like, I mean, I couldn't really imagine myself pitching anything else. So as far as being like, sort of like worried or having trepidation about it, like at the beginning, all I was trying to do is just make this guy happy over here, Randy. You know, that's my job really, is to write for the editor. And it really wasn't until like, it didn't really hit me what I was doing, what I was writing, until like a week before it came out. And then I started to get really worried. I had a big signing planned at Midtown Comics, and I was like, oh, this book is actually coming out. I'm either gonna be loved or hated by everyone. Obviously, it worked out well, but I don't know. I'm sort of like kind of trying to be as like blasé about it, because if I think too hard, I sort of like that's when I get scared about it.
Also, it's kind of ominous that as you're talking about that, a stormtrooper walks in.
Oh yeah.
By the way, I'm just going to go ahead and say I've been doing conventions for a good chunk of my life, and it's still, like, I still get this little moment of childlike glee every time I see a stormtrooper. I'm always like, you have made my day, sir. I want you to know that. All right, so, and also for you guys, you know, obviously coming into a very different Star Wars than what a lot of the world is used to, what inspired you, like, what do you really want to get across in the story you guys are telling right now? Did you have any thoughts? And you know,
I mean, I think that the biggest thing was that it felt like a huge opportunity to you know, to be able to tell exciting, you know, science fantasy pulpy stories that you know, that we wouldn't be able to tell anyplace else. You know, I mean, you get to play in the world of Star Wars, and you get to you know, you get to follow up you know, a run that you know, that built up that era so much, but you know, but take that and go, you know, go in a new direction, you know, see a different part of the galaxy, and you know, and do a fun pulpy comic. This is what I like to do. You know, it's nice to have the opportunity to.
And I think the thing we talked about the most when we were first starting to do this was what would feel the most like Star Wars. Not that it would have to ape or mimic the films, but what would have the feeling that gave us when we first saw them.
Yeah, and a lot of that is about, you know, I mean, the core things in Star Wars are about, you know, for me, have always been, you know, about, you know, these, you know, friends and loyalty, and, you know, you know, and that the, you know, they, you know, those are the core things beyond all of the genre trappings and everything that, you know, that makes me, you know, love those movies, you know, to this day.
Randy, how about you? After you know, editing Star Wars for as long as you have, with what we're doing now, did you have any goals that you kind of set out for these guys in terms of what direction you wanted them to take the stories?
Well, I think all of them sort of picked the direction that I wanted them to, without me prompting them too much. I think what really works in Star Wars is like Gabriel said, you know, it's about loyalty and friendship, and How many people here, is your favorite Star Wars movie The Empire Strikes Back? Yeah. That's the episode, that's the movie where they're not saving the galaxy. They're all just saving each other. Everyone is doing what they're doing to help their friends. And that's the heart of Star Wars is, because really saving the galaxy is kind of too big to wrap your head around, but saving your friends, everyone can relate to that. And so that if they hadn't done it on their own, I would have said, really focus on these characters and what drives them. Don't worry about the big galactic overriding events because they're actually less important than what the characters care about.
And actually, building off of that, obviously, Brian, one of the things that you are definitely known for and fantastic at is exactly that, working on really kind of getting to the core of characters and relationships between characters. Obviously, Leia is kind of a big part of this story. What motivated you to sort of focus on her?
Well, I mean, going back to what I was saying about how they've all suffered loss, I feel like she's suffered the most, and she's also like really young, has all this like burden and responsibility and sort of this title. I mean, I don't know if it's an official title, but she's kind of like some kind of a figurehead for the alliance. So I just sort of like. Tried to. I felt like there was a lot there. Someone so young having all this like burden. So I knew I definitely wanted to have her. I wanted to talk about that in the story. I also didn't want her to be sort of like a. Like I wanted her to have another side to that, sort of like her like pilot side, her like badass side, so that she wasn't just this tragic kind of weepy figure. But a lot of that was kind of, I mean, obviously there was something in my head somewhere that was telling me to make her the focal point because it was a very natural thing. It was kind of like one of the first things I asked Randy is, I'm like, can I make her a pilot? And everybody said yes. Randy said yes, and the Lucas editors also. So obviously that was kind of something that was kind of waiting deep down in the subconscious of my brain. I felt like she's earned it.
I have to tell you, and this isn't too much of a spoiler because I mean everybody knows that they blew up her planet, right? I mean that's kind of common knowledge. I'm not ruining that for anyone in this room. That scene where she was watching the tourism of videos of Alderaan, and like literally I cried.
Oh, come on.
I'm not. No, I did. I totally did. I'm not even kidding. I'm not embarrassed to say that, except for now I am when I look
Well,
out
I
at
think
everybody
there's-
looking at me like that.
Well, there's more stuff like that coming, so
Awesome.
get ready.
To cry more.
Get ready.
Brian Wood made me cry. Somebody tweet that, please. Okay, so and for you guys, obviously, well, you're dealing with kind of a long time descendant of Leia. Again, both series kind of seem to focus on these strong female characters. Was that something you guys kind of came to excited to kind of do, and what looking into other comics, for instance, one of the things that's really awesome about comics these days is that there's really awesome female characters. There was a time when I was growing up in the 90s where like they tended to focus on some of the wrong aspects of what it means to be a lady. That's all I'm going to say. And so, are there any other sort of works with kind of stronger female characters in comics that sort of inspired you that you can draw influence on as far as what you're doing with Anya?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know that's the case exactly. I mean, probably and influences may have come from outside of comics. But I know one of the things that we really wanted to do was I think that there's a really easy kind of. I just always call it like the fake badass thing, like there's a thing that where female characters are portrayed as allegedly strong just by, through a couple of really shallow, easy tropes that are not really, that's not really the character.
By being
And so,
angry instead
yeah,
of
and angry or tough or whatever. But so we want this, we want this her to be a flawed, character who who has virtues and vices or whatever, but not just not one of those kind of one-dimensional.
a person first, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Awesome.
All right, so how many of you guys have questions? Oh, come on, it's a Star Wars panel. There's one guy with his hand up. That is a first. Randy, am I right?
Step on up to that microphone if you
Please do.
have a question to ask. And if we don't know the answer, we'll make it up.
Or the internet will, which they tend to do.
So I have like maybe more of an editing question with everything. And a lot of times in Star Wars, you'll have a couple titles that'll have long runs, and then sometimes we'll get certain titles where it seems like it could have a long run, but then it goes away, and then it comes back, and then it goes away. And sometimes, like maybe with Dark Times, and then like another one that I really enjoyed that kind of had a short run was Invasion. And so I was just kind of wondering, like from the Dark Horse, Star Wars world, like how that's organized and how you go about that.
Well, it's really hard on a creative team to work on an ongoing monthly book. And for artists, it's really not even possible. I mean, you can go 6 issues, but by then the publishing schedule is caught up with you, and you need to, somebody else needs to step in and draw the book for a while. And so it's hard to do ongoing. With Legacy, we tried, and we had, as you know, we had a number of fill-in artists come in, but the John Ostrander wrote all the stories, so there was a cohesiveness to it. When Jan and John started Dawn of the Jedi, for instance, they knew that they wanted Jan to be the artist on every issue. Well, she can do about 5 issues, and then got to take during that break, what it looks like, she's working on the next issues, but we just moved the publishing schedule so that it takes Jan about 6 weeks to draw an issue. So if you've got a monthly publishing schedule, obviously she'd be overrun by that. So in situations like that, we came up with the idea of, well, we're going to do arcs, and these books are going to leapfrog each other so that everybody's constantly busy, but they're not, they don't have a gun to their head for the publishing schedule. With both Star Wars and the new Legacy, we're trying to do ongoing. So we've already got somebody working on the next arc, or beyond where Carlos Deonda can go. We got another artist already working, and we just hired an artist yesterday to pick up where Gabriel, is going to do 6 issues, then he's going to take a break, and the other artist will step in. So we'll do those as ongoings. The others will probably continue to leapfrog each other. And just some series are more successful than others. I mean, sometimes you go like, well, not as many people like this as we thought they would, and so we'll try something new.
Sorry, and am I allowed well, I'll ask, but is there, are you able to say, I guess, if Invasion is even on a future spectrum for coming back?
Right now it's not. That was one of the ones where it seemed like when we launched it, fans were really so excited about it. Oh, we're going to finally get to see the new Jedi Order era in comics, but the sales were just never there. It was, and no reflection on the series, because I thought it was great, and Tom Taylor's a great writer, and waited for years to get Colin Wilson to draw something for us.
His stuff is great.
Yeah,
I love
no,
that
he's
stuff.
he's awesome.
Thank you guys so much.
All right.
Thank you.
Hello. I just wanted to thank Mr. Woods for his comic. I was really enjoying that one in
Thanks.
particular. I shared it with my wife, and she ironically came in with Clone Wars and hates the original trilogy. So she's actually turning around now, so which is kind of nice. But I'm a big fan of Rogue Squadron and Wedge Antilles, and I'll see if we can hear anything about what's coming up for him.
For Wedge?
Yeah, for Wedge.
I love that guy. One of the big, I mean, I read that X-Wing series of novels, you know, years and years ago, and that's sort of, obviously, that's informing a lot of what I'm doing now. So as far as I'm concerned, Wedge is like a top tier guy. He's gonna stay in the story. There's not a whole lot I can say without, you know, obviously giving away too much stuff in advance. I think his conflict, I'll say really briefly, is sort of dealing with this like upstart Luke, who's sort of this farm boy pilot that's kind of stealing a lot of attention, you know? So Wedge is, I mean, obviously Wedge is, he's not an older guy, but he's been through a lot more in service of the Alliance. So there's a bit of tension there you can look forward to seeing.
Awesome. Thank you.
So with the possibility of the movies coming out and those being on the horizon, there's a fear that maybe a lot of the canon could be wiped away or completely changed, rewritten, Thrawn, New Jedi Order. I mean, some of these things could completely go away, and it doesn't seem that there's a role for that moving forward with the movies, and you guys having no idea what you're dealing with. What does that do for you creatively, that some of those important, iconic things could be changed and validated, but then also as fans, both looking at it that way?
You know, I mean, for us at Dark Horse, we've already dealt with this situation because, I mean, a couple of times, like between episodes, especially between episodes 2 and 3, we had no idea what was going to happen until just shortly before the movie was on the horizon. And then with the Clone Wars TV show, now a bunch of the stuff that we did has been kind of overwritten or has to kind of be retconned to fit in the same galaxy. You know, it's George's sandbox, and I don't begrudge him wanting to do it his way. And you know, and really, I don't think there's any other way that this could happen, because I mean, think about it. You've got a galaxy. You've got 25,000 year timeline. There's no way he could front load all of the information that you're going to need to know to tell stories in any one segment. And so now with the opportunity for new movies, to me, I think, yeah, it doesn't make sense for them to try and fit what they're doing into the existing continuity of the novels and the comics and games and whatever. I think if, you know, the movie is going to be so much bigger, it's going to reset the reality. So whatever they do, I mean, hopefully there's still a way to make some of that fit, but you know, the movies lead the way. We follow in their wake.
And they have to. I mean, you know, just they have to tell the story that's going to work best in that context. And I mean, they can't be beholden to that stuff, or it would be like impossible to make that film. I mean, but I feel like we're trying to tell exciting, entertaining stories, and I honestly feel like those books are still going to be on the shelf no matter what that movie does. They're not going to disappear. So it's exciting. It's interesting. It's synergy.
All right, thanks, guys.
Hello. I have a quick question for Brian and then a question for everybody. In your Star Wars series,
Han and Chewie have kind of a separate thing going on than everybody else? Are we going to see them interact with like Luke and Leia and those guys?
Yeah, not for probably the first 6 issues or so. They're kind of off on this mission. I mean, their story is going to get bigger. It's going to be sort of like a grander, more action-filled thing. But they're going to be physically separate from everybody else till at least like the second half of this first year.
I love, by the way,
Okay.
that their stuff feels like some awesome buddy action movie.
It's really a lot of fun to write them talking back and forth. I mean, it's tricky because, I mean, obviously you don't know what Chewie's saying, so you have to listen to Han's response, or I have to write Han's response in a way so that you know what's being said. So that's kind of a fun sort of an exercise to make that work without just having Han say everything back. I don't know. It's sort of fun. I am treating it kind of like a buddy film.
Okay, and for everybody, it kind of connects to what you're saying about how, well, there's a lot of really iconic kind of sounds in Star Wars, like Wookiee noises and Vader breathing and the lightsaber sound a certain way. Is it, I guess, does that really, are you thinking about like, I guess not like, kind of the amount of sound effect noises to use? Like, how many is cheesy and how many just makes it feel like Star Wars? I was wondering how you guys approach that.
I've thought about this a lot.
Yeah, we actually.
I have. I
talked
mean,
about this
because
a
we're
lot.
writing and I'm drawing the book.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and there's, I mean, I think it's one of those things, though, that part of the brilliance of it is that the sound effects are culturally built in. Like every one of you already knows this stuff, and and are coming to the books with that, with John Williams and Ben Burt in your head already. So I mean,
And when you read Brian's and you read what Chewie's saying, you hear it.
yeah, I mean, it's so there aren't a lot of other things where where it's that easy to bridge that gap. So you need to do less of it. I mean, there isn't. I mean, there aren't really sound effects for the lightsabers. There aren't, or at least we haven't been doing them. And I'm not really sure if that's something that you do generally or not.
Sometimes I've added sound effects. I mean, there are certain, over the years, we've developed, like, okay, the lightsabers go vroom, and, the blasters go badow, or, whatever, but those aren't really the sounds that's not really a good demonstration of the kind of sound, but it's been established as the trigger to make you hear the sound that you heard in the movies. And a lot of times I feel like less sound effects are better, but sometimes sound effects are necessary for the storytelling.
Yeah.
In the first Legacy series, I'm going to tell a story on Jan and John. John developed the conceit in his own mind that he was going to tell this whole story without sound effects, but there were a couple of places where you just needed a sound effect. There was no way to get around, if you didn't have the sound effect, you wouldn't know what was going on in the panel. So sound effects are absolutely necessary, but with Star Wars, like Gabriel said, they're really more triggers to make you hear what you already know.
And
can't
we're
believe
terrible at coming up with sound effects, though. And most of the time, I just ask people on Twitter what they think it would sound like, or something would sound like, and go with one of those responses.
I couldn't believe there wasn't some kind of a resource written down that told me how to spell out Chewie's sounds. I mean, I can hear them in my head, but I'm like, I don't know. And there wasn't any guide. I can't believe you gotta. There really should be a
And
guide.
the beauty of Star Wars is that someone online would tell you, no matter what you did, that you spelled it wrong.
I'm sure, yeah. But as far as what you're saying about things culturally being built in, is I have this great advantage is when I write, I can just imagine, I can just like hear like Harrison Ford's voice in my head, and I can play what I'm writing in my head and see if it sounds right. Like I have all these actors' voices I can sort of sort of check it with. And that really helps. That helps with Han and also with C3PO as well. If I can imagine what I'm writing coming out of his mouth or whatever, then I figure it's good.
Thank you.
All right, this is kind of a stupid opinion question, but so Lucasfilm's already told us that obviously the new movies are going to be entirely original. But since I have a panel, people that are paid to think Star Wars all the time, where would you like to see these spin-off movies go? We have all these rumors. I think most of us don't want to see young Yoda, but what would you like to see?
I'm not going.
Not even going to touch it?
You have asked a very terrifying question,
It
my
is.
friend.
It is.
Personally, I was working on the comics. I love doing that, and that's my job. But I don't write Star Wars movies, so that's a place I can be a fan. And I want to be surprised. I want to see what they're going to do, and I don't have to think about what they'll do. I just get to experience it. So that's my answer.
Yeah,
to that.
I
don't know if
agree
everyone
with
else
that.
feels.
I mean, I work on movies as well. I mean, I'm a storyboard artist. I work with Christopher Nolan a lot, and done a bunch of big movies. But I have zero interest in working on these J.J. Abrams movies. I can't. I feel like I'd be too close to it. I feel like and also, I just want to be surprised. I want to be the audience for the movie.
For sure. All right, thanks, guys.
I was just gonna say. I mean, I'm glad someone else said it first because I just really don't care. I mean, I'll go watch the film. I'll happily pay to see it, but I just kind of want it to be separate from what I'm doing.
Hi, thank you guys for being here and for keeping our Star Wars fix in between movies. The recent trilogy did not have enough of gangsters, underworld, bounty hunters, and I'm wondering, is that something, either established ones or new ones, you can have in your work, or some of the ones in between the series? And thank you for putting Leia in a fighter and kicking butt.
Well, I think you'll see that in Star Wars, Brian has some underworld stuff coming up. And obviously, Anya Solo, sort of working at the base level that she does, she's going to have encounters with lowlifes too. Actually, Brian's got
I have
two big bounty hunters coming up.
Yeah, well, there's definitely Fett and Bosk coming in, but I also have Han falling in the underworld of Imperial Center, falling in with a corrupt garbage man girl, sanitation worker, because of course they're all mobbed up.
Thank you.
Hey, so my question is, it's been a long, long time since the original Star Wars came out. I think we can all agree on that. And so, how do you keep in the integrity of the series, but still try and engage new generations and new comic users and video game users, but still try and keep a good canon, a good character arc, but with such a large amount of time that's been spanned between the original and even the next gen stuff was a long way off. So can you maybe speak about how you keep the integrity of the series and the emotion of it together?
Well, in mine, I sort of have an advantage where I'm dealing with a very contained amount of space and time, and I feel like that first. I mean, I'm not trying to reinvent that first film. I feel like that's great. I'm just trying to I'm trying to write in the spirit and the style as much as I can of that, and so I feel like that's taking care of it. I mean, I feel like that's a really accessible first film, and those characters are great. So I feel like I'm good there. I mean, I imagine it's much harder for writers who work in the expanded universe.
Well, yeah, but you make up other stories for other things. I mean, it's not that you're writing a story, writing a book. It's and it's just about it's about keeping that tone and making it feel make it feel exciting, and I don't know that it's that. I mean, the movie, that movie came out 30 years ago or stuff, and there's been a lot of other stuff, but you're always telling that story you're telling right now, and hopefully you're telling it in a compelling way.
Cool.
And I don't, you know, I mean, it doesn't seem like, you know, it doesn't seem impossible to tell exciting stories set in this very big universe.
Cool. Thank you.
On adding to the answer to that question, one of the things is, you know, writers ask me, well, you know, how true do I have to be to this? You know, because, you know, in all the years since those movies came out, so much stuff has been established, and stuff has been established, for instance, just in like one paragraph in an essential guide. And if you know, I say, well, all right, here's what you do. Ignore that stuff. Don't contradict it, but don't feel like you have to reiterate it every time you write a story. You're not writing a Wikipedia article. You're writing a story, and it really doesn't work for stories to have every single one of these, you know, whatever species is, you know, be a con man, because that's impossible. You could never have a society where everyone's a con man, you know. But stuff like that has been established. And so what you do is you just treat those characters like you would anybody else. They've got conflicting emotions. They've got their own desires. They've got their own plans for what they want to do, and they don't have to conform to a cultural stereotype just because it was mentioned in a book someplace. And a lot of fans hate to hear that, but it was established. You know, we're not contradicting it. We're just not gonna, you know, say it over and over.
Well, and clearly that thing about how they're all con men was written by some really intolerant guy who's, you know, I mean, come on.
Any other questions out there? Anybody? Yep. Here we go. I love that I keep making you walk all the way back there when you're right in front of me.
So there's a lot of different people who have a license with Lucasfilms in different ways, video games, now Fantasy Flight games. So does Dark Horse ever bounce ideas off with some of the other people that have those licenses? Like, for instance, like Fantasy Flight Games is going with this Edge of the Empire kind of thing. Like, do you guys ever communicate about, like, maybe we could do a comic or do something together? Is it just like, no, we all do our own thing, or, you know?
Occasionally. I mean, it's, you know, well, you're probably aware we did a sort of leapfrogged comic stories and novels with Del Rey, and now they're doing some Dawn of the Jedi novels, and so there's been sort of cross-pollinization across some of the licenses. We supplied, was it Fantasy Flight? I can't remember who. We supplied a bunch of information to one gaming company, specifics on characters and spaceships and things like that. It happens, but a lot of times, you know, somebody's working in this specific time period and we're working in this other completely different time period. So there's not a lot of room for crossover.
All right, cool, thanks.
All right, and with that, we are just about out of time. So want to thank all of you guys for coming today. And for those of you on the internet, I see that you have indeed been tweeting at me. So we will indeed send you comics. Thanks for playing along at home. Everybody, you guys are the reason that we still have Star Wars comics. And frankly, all I can say is please keep reading, and thank you guys very much. Have a great con.